everyone, my name's Barclay Loggie and welcome to today's demo. We're going back to basics today. We're looking at one of the first stitches that you learn as a bead weaver, and that's peyote stitch, but more specifically odd count peyote stitch. Now I have previously done a very brief demo, a bead weaving basic on odd count peyote stitch, which shows you how to do that unusual turn. So when you're doing your peyote stitch, which is pick up a bead, skip over a bead and go through a bead, when you're doing odd count, one of your turns is normal and then your second turn or every second turn is an unusual turn. But I really like odd count peyote because your patterns can become more intricate and yet they still stay symmetrical. So the ones we're looking at today, I've called them stack 'em up. So they don't really go with what I'm wearing today. But they're different widths. Each one is odd count and you can wear them all together or you could wear them separately. You want to make them a snug fit so that if you do wear them all together, they don't slip down and slide over your arm and slide over each other. So that's the odd count. We're going to look specifically at this little narrow one, which I haven't quite finished off yet. Within this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to read a peyote pattern, which sounds really scary, but when you know how to do it, it's actually really easy. So these two, the wider two, my patterns will be available in my Etsy shop, Barclay Loggie. I'll pop the link in the comments. So that's for those two. They will come together as one with the word chart and the pattern for the slimmer one too. So all three will be available as one tutorial in my Etsy shop. But today I'm going to show you on camera how to do the narrow one, i.e. doing odd count peyote, but also how to read the patterns. So the patterns in the Etsy shop, you'll get something that looks a little like this, which gives you a preview. It's a pattern preview of what the entire pattern is going to look like, and I've done it to 6 inches because that's a slim fit around my wrist. And then you will also get something that looks like this with a word chart, and I'm going to teach you in this demo how to read that word chart. Before we get going with the beading, I want to look at the patterns in a bit more detail so that you understand what I'm doing when I do it. So all of this is going to be available on Etsy as well. You will get 2 pages to each bracelet, and the first page will be like this, and it will show you a whole beaded strip. This is the pattern preview that I'm showing you here, and on the side you'll see that I've written that the length is 6.05 inches by 0.64 inches, and I've done the measurement in centimeters as well. So this doesn't actually measure the 6.05 inches, but it does show you what the entire pattern, 6 inches of it, will look like from top to bottom. Also on this page, we have this section here, which is known as a bead legend. So you can see there are 4 different beads that I've used in the pattern. There's a little color for each of them. Each of them has a number, A, B, C, and D. So that relates to the word chart. When we bring it in, you'll see there are lots of A, B, C's, and D's. So that tells you that the pink color is known as color A. It also gives you the manufacturer's number. So these are Delica beads, and that number 1744, that is the manufacturer's number relating to the color of the beads that are used in the pattern. And underneath that it gives you a count. So what that means is that in 6 inches of this particular pattern, you will use 262 beads of the pink Delica. So, and that's done for each color that is used in the pattern, and this is known as your bead legend. So you've got your bead legend and your pattern preview, and the second page will look a bit like this, which has still got the bead legend there, but it's got your word chart as well, numbered by rows, and then it's got a whole load of numbers and letters. Now the numbers in the brackets, so you can see 1, 2, 2, that relates to how many beads you're going to pick up, and the ABC, as we know, is relating to the different colors from our bead legend. So for example, in row 1 and 2, let's forget about the L and the R and the LR all the way down for now. In row 1 and 2, because in peyote, you will always pick up the beads for the first 2 rows together. I'm going to pick up 1A, followed by 2B, followed by 2C, followed by 1A, 2C, 2B, 1A. Now, another thing to tell you is that patterns don't often or don't always tell you whether they odd count or even count peyote, and the way to tell is to look at that first row there and to add up the number of beads you see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 beads, it's an odd number. This is an odd count peyote pattern. If it was an even count peyote pattern, the total number of beads that you pick up in row 1 and 2 would be an even number. So that's just going over the 2 sections that you're going to get very briefly. And as we go through the actual pattern for the narrow bracelet, I'm hoping it will all become a lot clearer for you. So having a quick look at what we're going to be using to make these odd count peyote stacker bracelets. I've got 4 colors of my size 11 delicas. Color A is white pearl Ceylon. Color B is lined sparkling purple crystal. Color C is fuchsia lined opal AB, and color D is purple Ceylon lined crystal. Now I will pop all those colors in the description of this so that you can use the same colors if you wish to. Those same 4 colors are used in each of the 3 bracelets. There's no other colors that I've used, it's just those 4, and I've used them slightly differently and in a slightly different order. I've got a toggle clasp, I've got 6-pound file line in white or crystal, I've got a size 10 beading needle, and I've got my thread zappers to end off my threads. And the last thing that you are going to need is your pattern. So we've got the pattern preview, the bead legend, and then the word chart. And the way I have labeled my beads, A, B, C, D, corresponds with the bead legend for this particular pattern. So in this bracelet that we're doing today, A is the white, B is the purple, C is the pink, and D is the lovely violet color. So that's everything that you need before we get started. At the start of this demo, we very quickly went through how to read a peyote pattern. We're going to take things a little slower now with the actual pattern we're using. And this is the one I've got in front of you. We've still got the 4 colors. It's for the slim bracelet. Let me just bring it out. It's for this one, which we're going to do. And I've got all my rows, and you'll see it only goes as far as row 14, and then I've got repeat from row 3. So once you've completed row 14, you go back up to row 3 and you come all the way back down again, get to the bottom and back up to row 3 for as long as you need. So looking at rows 1 and 2, if I just bring a sheet of paper in to cover the rest. So looking at rows 1 and 2, you can see I've got 2C, 2A, 2B and 1A, a total of 7 beads, which tells me it's odd count peyote. And the little L and R, which I ignored in the beginning, those tell you that you're beading towards the left or you're beading towards the right. And that's when you look at the word chart. So you're beading towards the left or you're picking up towards the right, to the left, to the right. But to be completely honest with you, I tend to ignore the left and right as long as I'm picking up the beads in the order that it tells me. Because I flip my work as I'm doing peyote stitch, the left and right doesn't really matter to me. So that little stretch there is our entire pattern. Remember, the numbers in the brackets tell you how many of the C bead you're going to pick up, how many of the A bead you're going to pick up. And that is my entire pattern. I'm going to suggest you take a screenshot of it now so that you have it to keep. And the way people sometimes do this is they mark off on the pattern. So if someone was following the pattern preview and they were picking up the beads, they'd put a little pencil cross through them as they picked them up. I tend to just go from the word chart and I use a ruler and I just go, okay, I'm on row 1 and 2, then I move it down slightly for row 3 and then down for 4 and so on. You could also just do a little tick, but as I said, we get down to the bottom and then we're back up to the top to repeat them again. So you will find a method that works for you, but grab a screenshot of it now because I will be bringing it backwards and forwards into view, but you might not get the whole thing just as it is for now. So as I showed you as well, I've got my beads laid out in accordance with the pattern. So color A is matching my A on my mat, B is matching B, and so on. In some of the other patterns that are available on Etsy, although I'm using the same colors, you'll see that color A is the violetty color, B is the purple, C is the pink, and D is the white. So it's really important to read that bead legend and get your beads set out in the correct order, A, B, C, D, so that when you come to read the pattern and you pick up 2C, you've got them right there, you know what you're doing. And we're ready to go. So the first thing you're going to do is cut a length of thread that you are comfortable working with. I tend to work with about 3 meters at a time, but it's easy to add in thread, and pop it onto your needle. And I've just picked up a random bead from my stash that I'm going to use as a stopper bead. So I pass the needle through it once and I move it down towards my tail and I pass the needle back through it once more. Leave yourselves a 15 to 20 centimeter tail because you can use that to add on one end of your clasp. So my stopper bead is in place and I'm ready to start doing my odd count peyote. Now remember, I have a basic bead weaving demo on odd count peyote which goes really slowly, showing you that unusual turn so that you don't miss out on the steps. If you need a bit of a refresher, I advise you to have a quick look at it, or if you've never done odd count peyote before, you really need to try that demo out first. The link to it is in the description of this video. Now these are size 11 delicas. They are tiny, and when I'm trying to demo for you, it doesn't leave me much to hold on to, so I will go very slowly and try keeping my fingers out of the way as much as possible for you. So we need to bring our pattern into play, and we are going to be looking at that very first line, which is rows 1 and 2 together. So I need to pick up 2C, 2A, 2B, 1A. So I'm going to move that out of the way for now. So it was 2C, pick up 2C, 2A, 2B, and 1A. 7 beads in total, 2C, 2A, 2B, and an A. And I'm going to let them drop down to my stopper bead. There they are. You can see how tiny they are. That's row 1 and 2, although it only looks like one row, but as soon as we do the next row, you'll see how it pulls them into place. So we've done rows 1 and 2. I need to move my ruler down to row 3, which says 1B, 1A, 1C, 1D. I'm only picking up 4 beads in total this time. B, A, C, D. So let me just move these back into shot here. And I'm going to hold my beads this way so that you can hopefully see what I'm doing. So the first one I'm picking up is 1B. Now this is normal peyote. We've picked up a bead. We're going to skip over that last one we added and go through the next one. So I'm going to be going through that first purple bead. As I said, I'm going slowly because it's very difficult to show you with such tiny beads, and I want to try and keep my fingers out the way as much as possible to show you what's happening. So my first B that I added sits alongside the A from my previous pickup. So that was 1B. Now I need 1A. Pick up 1A. Skip over a bead and then pass through the next bead. This is just how you do your normal peyote. So I've skipped over the next purple and I'm passing through the first white. And you can see how they start to sit alongside each other there. The next one I've got to pick up is 1C. So I'm picking up 1C. I'm skipping over the next white and I'm going through the first pink. Pull the threads out the way. And you can see, you start to see, we talk about sticky outy beads in peyote, and you can start to see those sticky outy beads. Right, I've got one more pickup for this row 3 and it's a D. So there's my D, and I would skip over a pink and go through the next bead, but my next bead is my stopper bead and I don't want to go through this. So this is your first unusual turn, and the first one in odd count peyote is always slightly different to the rest of them. So I'm just moving that stopper bead out of the way a little bit. I want this D that I've just picked up to sit alongside that top pink delica. And for the unusual turn and the very first one you do, you're going to turn and bead back towards yourself and pass down through 3 beads on the diagonal. Now this is where it's really tricky because I'm trying to keep my fingers out the way. In the demo that I did in the basic, the bead weaving basics, I used bigger beads so it was a bit easier for you to see. So I'm coming down through 3 beads. And this one that you've just added will need a little bit of help to get into place alongside the bead before it. Now I'm going to come straight across and up through the white that sits alongside the pink that I'm exiting. So just do this slowly to make sure you get it right. Up through that one. And now I want to come up through the bead that comes just before that last one I added in row 3. So the last one I added in row 3 was this violet one that my needle is through. I now need to pass up through the 2 pinks on a slight diagonal so that my needle is exiting the pink just before the violet. And then what I can do is I can just pass back down through that violet bead and I'm ready to start row 4. So that's your unusual turn that we've done that side, and I'm flipping my work over again, which is why I say I don't really take notice of the lefts and rights because I'm constantly flipping. As long as I pick them up in the right order, I know I'm going to be safe. So now I've got my stopper bead at the bottom and my thread is exiting the violet, the D, that last bead I added in row 3. So I'm going to bring my pattern back in. There you can see that last D from row 3. Row 4 is only 3 beads. It's 1C, 1A, 1B. So this is, we're back to normal peyote now, and it's 1C. And now I'm just passing through those sticky outy beads. So through the first one. Then I've got 1A and up through the next sticky outy bead. And 1B. And up through the last sticky outy bead. So this is going to be a normal turn on this side with the stopper bead closest to me. and I have completed row 4, and I'm going to turn my work again. Now my stopper bead is up at the top. I've flipped over and I'm ready to start row 5. So here we go. Row 5, 1A, 1B, 1A, 1C. And we're going to be doing the unusual turn again because we've got our stopper bead up at the top there. So 1A, I go through the next sticky outy bead, which is that purple. 1B, through the next sticky outy, which is the white one. Another A, through the pink sticky outy now. And 1C. And this is my unusual turn. So I pick up my C, and the pink that I've just picked up, I want to sit alongside this violet one that I picked up back in row 3. Now when we did the first unusual turn, we came down on the diagonal through 3. From now onwards, you only need to come through 2. So I'm coming down on the diagonal through the violet and the pink. It's very difficult actually because these pink beads are very close in color to my fingers. So down through 2, then give that pink bead a little bit of help to go into the right position. We come straight across because there's an intersection of rows of beads there, and we want this thread to be gobbled up in that intersection. So straight across. I'm really struggling here because there's so little to hold on to and not get my fingers in a way. Up through 1, so you go up through the pink that you've come straight across. And remember, we want to eventually be exiting the bead just before the last one we've added in that row. So we're now going to come up through the lilac one, which is the bead just before the last pink bead we added. And then I can pass my needle down through that pink bead that we added at the end of row 5. And I can flip my work again now, so my stopper bead is now closest to me, and I'm ready to bead away on row 6. So if I bring row 6 in, row 6, as we can see, is 1A, 1B, 1A. So pick up an A, straight through the next sticky outy, which is the white in this case. A B, straight through the sticky outy, which is the same color, a purple, and then an A. This is our normal turn. We've got a sticky outy at the top there that we can pass through, so straight through the white. And I'm ready to start row 7. So you can already see my little pattern is starting to evolve. So row 7, I'm going to do one more unusual turn with you. You can see row 7, I've got 1C, 1A, 1B, 1A. So a C through the sticky outy, an A. Eventually you will start to know which bead is coming next without even looking at your pattern, because you can just see from the pattern that's developing in your beaded strip what's going to be coming next. A B, and I want my A, which is the white one, to sit alongside that last pink. So I'm going to turn and come back down through 2 beads on the diagonal, through the pink and through the white. Give that white a little bit of help to get into the right position. Come up through one pink that it sits alongside the white that you've just exited. Oops. And then up through the pink bead that sits just before the white one. And pass your needle down through the white bead that you've just added, and you're ready to start row 8. And I'm flipping my work again, and we'll just do one more. There's row 8 is 1B, 1A, 1C. So B, A, got a bit of fluff there, B, A, and C. Flip around and I'm ready to start row 9. So I'm going to get to the end of the first little repeat and I'll come back to you where the pattern tells me I need to repeat. See, I've got a bit further with my pattern. I've just completed row 13 and I've now got row 14, which is 1C, 1A, 1B. So 1C, A, B, row 14 complete. I'm going to flip over, ready to continue. And then I get to my repeat from row 3. So I just need to slide my ruler back up to row 3 and I've got B, A, C, D. B, A, C, and I've got my unusual turn with D, pick up a D, come down through 2 of those pink beads on the diagonal, coax it into place, up through the white bead alongside, and up through the pink bead just before that violet bead, and back down through D. And I've finished the next row, and I would now move down onto row 4. And so I would continue all through my pattern until I had a strip long enough to go around my wrist. I'm going to show you quickly how I added on a clasp. I've used different clasps in the different bracelets. So for the wider one, I used this sliding tube clasp that had 3 connection points. And for the other ones, I've used a toggle and I've just connected in the middle point of each bracelet. So on this one, I found the middle, and once I'd finished beading my strip, I added on this end of the toggle with my working thread. I've now threaded the needle onto my tail thread, and I'm going to just pass through the beads. This would be a way to end off your threads and start a new thread as well. So I'm going through the beads, hopefully not showing any thread, and I'm going to just pop out of one of these beads on the very end here. And you'll see I've picked out 3 little silver beads. And that's all I'm going to use to attach. So I'm going to pick up 2. There are no rules for this. This is just the way I'm doing it and a quick way to show you. And I'm going to pass back through the first silver bead that's closest to the clasp. And then I'm going to pick up 1 more, and I'm going to pass through the next sticky outy bead on the end there. And what you should do now, which I've shown in previous videos, is reinforce that little connection point there by passing through the beads and all the beads you've just added through the clasp and back down again to reinforce it, because your clasp takes the most wear and tear. But I have done that in previous demos, and to save a bit of time, because this has been a long one, I'm now going to show you how to end off your thread. So if you needed to add in thread halfway through, this is what you would do. You would end off your working thread first. So again, I'm going to pass through the beads. I don't want any thread showing, and I'm coming all the way up to the top here. You could, if you wanted to, get really fancy, get up to the top and add a little edge onto the end of your peyote stitch. And now I'm just creating a little maze by going up and down through the beads. I'm losing the thread in the beads, and I'm just filling up the holes of those little beads with thread so that it doesn't come undone. I'm just going along the top layer here, but you could come down into the pattern and you could go back on yourself, because that really ties the thread up in knots. Just keep ensuring that you pull your thread tight so that any thread that comes across those intersections there gets sucked in and you don't see it. So I'm just going up and down, left and right, losing the thread in those beads before I snip it off. And you would start a new thread exactly the same way. So if I ended this off with my zapper, and if I needed to start a new thread, I would start somewhere slightly different and just move up and down through the beads and make sure that I came out of the bead where I last ended. The last bead I added, that's the bead I want to be starting from the next time. So there we have our thinnest of our stack 'em up odd count peyote bracelets. I'm going to bring them all into shot now so you can see them finished and together. So there we have all three of them. As I said, all three patterns are available on Etsy, Joe Barclay Loggie, and you will find that the patterns look a little more complicated. So I'm going to quickly show you this again. There's the pattern we've just used for the slim bracelet. Now if I bring in the pattern for the thicker bracelet, it looks a lot more complicated, and you might find yourself sounding a bit like a robot going CBD, BDB, DBDBDBDBD. Is that just me sounding like the robot? But the patterns, once you know what you're doing, it doesn't matter how complicated they are. You know how to read them now and you can get going. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. As always, if you've got questions, pop them in the comments and you'll be able to see I do answer all the questions and I get to them fairly quickly. Have fun with this. I'd love to see what colours you choose to do your stack 'em up bracelets in. I'm not really a pink and purple girl, but I stepped out my comfort zone for this one. Remember to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any new tutorials. I'll be uploading another one again very soon. In the meantime, stay safe, keep well, carry on with Joe's tutorials, the hashtag that we were trying to get going, and I'll see you very soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.